Hello, Dr. Rodriguez. I'm here to present to you my Arizona language development approach and analyze it. First, we're going to start with what is an EL. According to Arizona law, an English learner or EL means a student whose primary language is not English and who has sufficient difficulty speaking, reading, writing, or understanding the English language that the student's ability to learn successfully in classrooms where the language of instruction is English is impaired. EL support is varied and specific to each individual student. Every student comes in at kind of a different place, so they need to be tested and they need to be placed in the right program. There also may be students whose primary language at home is not English, but they are proficient enough that they do not need any EL services. The demographics, the most recent data I could find is in 2016 and 17, there were 72,000 about EL students, making about 6%. Of that 6%, 87% of EL students were Hispanic or Latino. The most popular language, therefore, is Spanish spoken at home. Other languages are still within the programs are required, but they're not as popular as Spanish. Some of those are Navajo, Vietnamese, Mandarin, Arabic, or Somali. In Arizona, students in English immersion programs, or SEI, is a state-mandated instructional model where English language instruction is for all students. It is designed to make English comprehensible for all students as quickly as possible and then return them to their English-only classrooms. They typically receive about 4 hours a day of English instruction, and then core class learning is pushed back. So the goal is to graduate as quickly as possible. In 2019, it was revised just a little bit, and schools were allowed to adopt other research-based models that are just a little bit different than the SEI model. It differs from the sheltered English instruction model, where it focuses more on, again, getting them in and out pretty quickly with minimal native speaking, whereas the SIOP model has a lot more native language being spoken. Arizona's four principles of language development. We start with asset-based behaviors and expectation. Teachers in schools see ELs as assets, not deficits. So they see bilingualism as a good thing. The students' cultural and linguistic backgrounds, bilingualism, and lived experiences are all resources for learning. The second principle is integrated instruction in disciplinary language and content. ELs develop English through subject content, not apart from it. And then academic language and disciplinary knowledge should be taught together across all subjects. The third principle is targeted and explicit language instruction. ELs also need explicit English language development, or ELD, that they must master to succeed academically. Finally, assessment, monitoring, and feedback. Continuous assessment and feedback are essential for guiding instruction to make sure ELs make language and academic progress. Why does it matter for student agency? Why should EL students have student agency? EL students have a lot more barriers than normal kids that already have barriers within the educational process. So developing that agency really helps them overcome these barriers. First one is self-determination. So when students see themselves as being capable of learning in science, in math, in all subjects, they feel better about themselves, and that autonomy helps and builds and promotes growth. It also helps promote or foster a sense of voice. When students express their ideas and their knowledge, they practice English in real-world situations. So when they graduate, they can go to a college, they can go to any secondary learning, and they can feel more comfortable and more confident. Or if they go into the workforce, they can feel more confident knowing that they have better English and that they can succeed because of that. It also builds confidence and identity. When we celebrate their bilingualism, it helps them develop academic confidence and a stronger sense of belonging. So they can belong to their heritage, they can belong to other kids who speak Spanish with them or whatever language they have. But then as they learn English, it also helps them not necessarily assimilate into American culture, but better understand it and have a better chance of success, because there's still, unfortunately, a lot of employers, a lot of schools that will measure people based on how well they speak English. Arizona's SEI model, we had already kind of talked about the structured English immersion, but in 2019, there was new laws that allowed for other research-based models, which we'll talk about now. First one is a newcomer model. It's designed for new English learners, typically students who have been in the US schools for less than a year and are pre-emergent or emergent at the levels of the AZELA, which we will get to later. The pull-up model is best suited for younger or intermediate proficiency ELs who can spend most of their day in the general classroom, but still need targeted time out of class. The 2-hour model is a flexible alternative to the old 4-hour block. It is designed for districts wanting to maintain dedicated daily blocks, but also making sure that they still have enough time in their content areas. The last one is a 50-50 dual language model. This is for English learners and English proficient peers to develop bilingualism, biliteracy, and bicultural competence. So they take students who want to know Spanish, who know Spanish, who want to know English, who know English, and it helps them kind of come together as one. This one does require a waiver from the state. In the classification process, there has to be a way to understand who needs it and who doesn't. There's a 2-step process to determine who qualifies. The first step is to get a home language survey, which screens students for possible need. This is state mandated and it is available in multiple languages to ensure accuracy. Its goal is to ensure that no one slips through the cracks. Everyone who might need English language services is caught. They are put into what they need. They are assessed on whether they need it or not. Second step is the AZELA, the Arizona English Language Learner Assessment. It is a standardized test and it measures listening, speaking, reading, and writing. There are 5 levels. It starts with pre-emergent, second level is emergent, third is basic, fourth is immediate, and then finally you have proficient. Anyone who's scoring below proficient is offered the EL services, and the goal is to get to a proficient level. Once they graduate from the program, they are then checked in with for 2 years and make sure that they still have support to make sure they are succeeding. Some of the kind of general accommodations, kind of more important big ones for the test are setting accommodations, whether that be small group testing with a few other students, preferential seating so that they can better understand, separate testing rooms so they can have peace and quiet, and then they get extended time on the test. They make sure to have breaks between sections. And there's also presentation, whether they want to be read aloud for more auditory learners or if they need visual aids for more visual learners. And they can also use adaptive equipment if that is necessary. Parents do have a lot of rights when it comes to the EL students. The first one is notification, that parents must be notified in writing in a language that they understand that their child will be placed in EL programs, and they will be offered any of the alternative instructional services like we had talked about before. They also must be notified within 30 days of the beginning of the school year. They have the right to opt out of it. Even if a student does opt out, they still need accommodations in the general classroom and must still score proficient on the AZELA. They also have a right, like we had mentioned, to request an alternative program, such as the newcomer model or the 50-50 model that we talked about earlier. Thank you, and I hope you have an excellent rest of your day.